And here we are getting ready for the 2024 Sebring 12-hour race on iRacing. Team racing here with the Thursday Night Sim Racing League team of Greg March, Fabian Binz Sharp, and Lee Hetherington. Lee Hetherington in the car at the start of the race, going under the bridge for the first time in the rain. You can see a bunch of cars right here heading off the track on the outside of turn one, spinning merrily on their way. And Lee is able to avoid that problem without any issue there. Here they are going into turn three for the first time, and you're going to see right there another car losing it in the wet. Very hard conditions at the start of this race here, and that was what it looked like going into turn three. Now a little deeper into the first lap here, just at turn four, right at the bridge there. Lee has to get out of the way of that car who was going into the wall. Now a little deeper into the race. This is a hard first lap. As you can see, the conditions very, very difficult here. The windshield wiper is going strong here for the first bit of the race here. And now we get into this I think is turn 8 at this point here, and then going into turn 9. Conditions very, very difficult. But not only are they wet out, it's cold tires at the start of the race, and Lee is working really hard to keep the car on the racetrack here. No big problems so far. A couple of cars leaving the track, although you can see a big wiggle there. He was able to collect it there. Now heading down towards the little right left-hander before you go into, there's the left-hander. And then you go to the right-hander and you slow down a lot before this little chicane, and you get a nice big wiggle there. A couple of cars go through right there. He's able to collect it without any issues. He doesn't go on to the back straight, this super long back straight. Speeds in these cars 175 plus miles per hour in the dry. Not maybe quite so fast in the wet, because coming off of that turn 16 corner there, you're not getting as much grip as they go into that wide sweeper at turn 17. And here it is, big grip problems at that point in time. Coming up here out of turn 17, and here, oh, there you go, big bang from a car coming out of nowhere to clip Lee. Big problems there at that point in time. You can see here is the overhead view from the chopper shot. That green car goes way too hot into turn 17 and tries to track out like there's no car there. Unfortunately, there was a car there. That was Team TSRL. Another angle here from the outside of turn 17. And you can see that car coming through. There was no way that car was going to be able to get the car put together, and it just like it was almost you weren't even there. One of those racing incidents. The driver in the pits had to go and took a normal line, but it wasn't there. Just missed the pit entry, so he had to limp the car all the way around the racetrack. Got himself into the pits. A 13-minute pit stop for all of the required fixes from that. And of course, that puts the car down way far, very early in the race. So here he is back on the racetrack after those repairs on lap 6. Bad visibility in the rain. Rain at the start of this race. Rain brand new in iRacing this year. So this is a big element that all of the drivers had to deal with for the first time. But very hard to see in those high-speed turns with the rooster tails coming up and off the cars. You're going to see all of these cars here coming through. And of course, these cars have their wheels and tires up to speed, or up to heat, so they're able to do a little bit faster laps here going when Lee gets back on the racetrack. But he holds his own there, going through the hairpin side by side. Very clean racing there. Lee was let that car go by because at that point in time, you're early in the race. You don't want any more damage to take any more time into the pit lane here. Definitely don't want to spend any more time in the pits after a 13-minute pit stop. Now we're on lap 6 of the race. You can see how difficult it is from the cars. You just lose the car in the mist from the cars in front of you, and you can see, watch what happens as they come out of the turn with the rooster tails. There's nothing to tell him at that point in time that there's 3 or 4 cars in front of him in pretty close proximity. You just kind of have to hope that when you get to the right point to hit the brakes, and everything works out. There's nobody there in front of you. Really, really skillful driving here in this difficult part of the race. Lee got a lot of rain on this first stint and dealt with that, and then the track started drying out at some point here. This is now Fabian in the car. Coming up here in just a minute, about 15 seconds left in this portion of the race, and then Fabian will be getting in the car, and this will be around lap 31. And there is the first driver change around lap 31 of the race. Fabian getting the car, and you can actually see the sun's out. You can see pit lane is drying here, so he's going out at this stint on dry tires on a drying racetrack. So there's two, because you can see the Rooster Tail, still a lot of water on this racetrack, but there comes a point in time when you want to start to go onto the dry tires. It was found, oh, big drift there, and you can see another car off there in the wall, probably tried to make a similar decision to go out on those dry tires, but when you do that, the team decided that when the car got down to about a 2-minute and 8-second lap on the wet tires, that was the time where the track was dry enough to go out on dry tires. 2 minutes and 8 seconds. Now, a normal lap in dries here at Sebring is about a 1:47. So 1:45, 1:47 are the faster laps here on the dry. So that is the delta that you look for, that 2-minute and 8-second lap time, where you can decide that, okay, it's time to try to go on those dry tires. But when you make that decision, it is still really, really slick out there. And that is the situation here. You can see him just kind of tiptoeing here through this part of the race. And you can also tell that he is throwing up a little bit less of a rooster tail than some of the other cars. That's because he is on the dry tires. The cars with the bigger rooster tails still on wet tires. So they're going to maybe have a little bit of a faster lap here for just a bit, but this is the crossover time where the dry tires actually seem to be at least as fast as the wet tires, and then the track will dry out here over the course of the next several laps. There's Fabian sliding off the racetrack on those dry tires, just trying to find the best place to drive them. And these first laps, when you go to the dries, are very, very tricky. Lots of cars sliding off at different points, so you can see that wiggle there through that little left-hander. And you can see the car going around them. We also found out that the LMP2 cars, which is a slower class of cars, were actually a lot faster in the rain because of the different types of downforce that they have, different types of rain tires on those cars, and probably also the weight of the cars and the horsepower, a little less horsepower in those cars, which means you can put the gas down a little bit more and not have to worry about that rear wheel spin here. Here we've got Fabian going through turn 17, trying to keep the car on the racetrack here. Here he is heading down towards turn, where are we at here? Turn 13, I think, maybe? And a little bit of a lazy spin there. Thankfully, he was able to keep it off the wall, no problems. He'll be able to spin it around, I think, here, and then he will be back on his way. Waiting for those cars to go by so he doesn't get clobbered and have to go back to the pit lane for an extended pit stop. Oh, just gets clipped a little bit, but not too much. He was able to get going here, get back on the racetrack. Now we move to lap number 50. This is Fabian's fastest lap. You can see him really being able to put it together here. The track drying out. This ended up being a 1-minute and 50-second lap. So his fastest lap here in the race, or in this section of the race, on those dry tires. This was the team's first lap under a minute 50 in the entire race, because of course the race started in the rain. So now the team's starting to get its groove, and Fabian doing a great job here going into the hairpin. This is a first or second degree corner, depending on how you decide to drive it. And then you get hard on the gas here through 8 and 9, coming down towards turn 10. This is a second, or some drivers take this corner in first gear as well. Then you're hard on the gas again. Two little right-handers, then left-handers, then a right-hander, then it's hard on the gas one more time. Second gear corner here, tracking out to the left. Now you come back to the outside. You don't want to hit this first curb here, and then there's a second curb that you're able to hit just a little bit. Then you've got the right-hander here. This is the little left-hander. Then you track out to the left to make up a good entrance to turn 16 onto the back straight, and then that long, rambling run down towards that big turn 17 sweeper. And this ended up being the fastest lap for the team. The first lap under 150, the fastest lap for the early section of the race here. They were able to get down a little bit faster later in the race. Of course, this is early on in the 12 hours, lap 50, so probably about a quarter of the way through the race here at lap 50. Now we switch over to Greg is now in the car. Greg March is in the car at this moment. Well, actually, this is Fabian here in the car at that point in time. He hit the hard, you can see the car bouncing there. I apologize. Greg, not Greg in the car. This is Fabian who lost it there. Broken steering, had to come into the pits for another extended pit stop to get everything put back together. It also needed a tow to get back to the pits. So now we're back in the car. Now it's Greg in the car. He's able to get under a minute 50 on this lap as well. You can see the car is in 9th place in class. They're on the side of the track. Car number 19, and then the lit up numbers, that's the car's position on the racetrack. So this was Greg's minute 50 lap here, also in drying conditions. This is lap 68. There's flying cone that he was good enough to avoid there. Now you see some of that slower GT3 traffic. No problem there. It's called GTD, but a lot of those cars are GT3 spec cars. Greg weaving through traffic without too many problems here. Setting a really, really decent lap here. Lap 68. This is probably just before the halfway mark. Let's see, no. 338 laps was a total lap. So this is probably still in the first quarter of the race, actually. First third of the race. Making his way down the back straight here. You can still see there's a couple of wet spots still on the racetrack, but plenty of dry line to utilize here. Now we see Greg on lap 124. Lots of traffic going down the front straight here, trying to negotiate around some of the slower cars. He has to weave left and right to avoid them. Now we've got some other faster cars with us as well, with him as well, as he comes through the turn three section into turn 4 and 5. Lots of traffic to keep it behind them, pulling away from some of the other GTB cars as well. It's always interesting when you get to this portion of the racetrack, is some of the really slower cars have already dropped out or had crashes, and now the cars who are still on the track are the ones who are going to make it for, unless they have some other problems, are going to make it deep into the race, and the better teams and the better drivers are now still on the track here in this lap 124 area. Now we're clearly into the second third of the race. So you also always get some slower drivers, some less experienced teams. Early in the race, they drop out early in the first third of the race. Once you get to the second third of the race, now these are teams that are in it for the long haul. Often the better drivers, the better teams, the more prepared and practiced teams. And they're not as easy to pass and get around, and they are often, especially in the drive, pretty aggressive at this point in time. Well, they're always aggressive through most of the race, but Now you have to measure. You're also now getting to the point where the people in the cars that are in the car while you're out there might not be the same drivers that you saw last time on the racetrack. So that's something you've got to pay attention to. Here's Greg making an attempt to look on the inside of that car going into 17. Does not make the pass there, but plenty of cars there. Fun little battle here for this section of the race. Now we get back into the second rain portion of this race. It is heavy, heavy rain here. This is Greg's first time on the rain tires for him, so he's having to try to find his way here through this section of the race. And you can tell which drivers have practiced in the rain prior to this event and which drivers might be learning in the rain for the first time. Like I said earlier, the rain is a new aspect to iRacing. It was introduced earlier this year, so this is the first race in iRacing, the first endurance race where they have introduced rain. And it was pretty certain that we'd get rain at least once during this race. They're not going to put all that effort into making a rain module without introducing some rain racing in these big events. But this second time, you can see just completely missing the chicane there, or the hairpin there, and he had to likely had the escape row, so he didn't hit anything, but also smarter in the rain to not try to make the corner and then spin, and he's able to re-enter the track here just on the outside of that hairpin and head back now towards turns 8 and 9. That was a cool camera angle there. We don't get to see that one very often. Big, big rooster tails there. Really, really having to slow down to figure out where the line is. You can see, not only can you see the rooster tails, you see big puddles and standing water all around the racetrack. And you can actually see the rain falling on those cameras. Yeah, iRacing did a really decent job for this first iteration of the rain module. It'll probably get better over time, but for the first instance, as you can see, Greg going off at the exit of turn 16. Luckily, again, able to keep it off of the wall there. Enters the racetrack with that BMW coming up from behind. Plenty of room for the BMW, so no issues there. Coming up on our driver change here around lap 167 is where we're going to pick up Lee back in the race car for what I think is his second stint, or maybe even his third stint at this point in time. Yep, now we've got, you can see now we're back to a drying racetrack, and here is Lee in the car during those drying conditions. Maybe overestimating just a little bit how dry the racetrack is, going wide at turn 1, but did not hit the wall, able to come back on the racetrack without any big issues here. Now we're going to switch coming up here in just a second. It's sunset at Sebring International Raceway, and Fabian's back in the car on lap 196, so we're coming up with about 4 hours, 5 hours to go here with lap 196. For those of you that might not be familiar, this is legitimately a 12-hour race. The gents get in the car at whatever time the start of the race is. I believe it was about 6 a.m. East, my time on the West Coast. It was around 9 a.m. Eastern time, and literally raced for 12 hours. The cars, there was a car who went off there, and Lee was not able to, the Fabian not able to avoid that car sliding off, crashes into the back of the car, loses the front bonnet from the car, and he is now having to limp back around to get the car repaired. That was on lap 207. And now back out on the racetrack here. Greg is in the car. He got hit by an LMP2 car from behind, but he was able to have not too much damage and get back on the racetrack. Now we're at lap 237. Lee is back in the race car at this point in time. and he is about to put down his best lap of the race. I believe this is the best lap for the entire race for the team, a 1:45.9. So I was telling you earlier that during the rain portion of the race, the 2:08 mark was where they decided to go to dry tires, and now you can see on full dry racetrack and on dry tires, Lee's putting down a lap of 1:45.9. Yeah, that is absolutely hollow in the mail, folks. You can also see more of that just past sunset. Beautiful time to be driving the race car here. That is the long run down to turn 17. You hit that turn in 7th gear, and then you downshift down all the way to 3rd gear to go through that big sweeper here. Lots of cars right there, and a GT3 car takes and bumps Lee right off the racetrack. Thankfully, not a lot of damage, no other cars involved. Lee's able to get right back into the action. Lots of issues there. Now we get to the dark. Fabian in the car here on lap 278, and he is going to hit his best lap of the entire day in the dark. This lap is going to be a 1:47.3. Mind you, that's only about 2 seconds a lap different than the fast lap for the entire race, which was done during the daylight hours. So this is a fantastic race. Some drivers actually think they can pick up the racetrack a little bit better at night because they're really focusing more on just what's happening in front of them and don't have the distractions of what's happening during the daylight. Also, because it's dark, they know they don't have many ways or places where they can make mistakes, so they're more focused here. But what a great piece of driving here for Fabian. 278 laps into this race, dropping down a 1:47.3. We're going to catch most of this lap here. Actually, we might probably catch the whole lap here. This 1:47.3 also helped by the fact that it doesn't appear that there's any cars around Fabian to be worrying about anything else. So it's pretty much a clean qualifying type lap, kind of the perfect situation here to lay down a good racetrack here. Also have to remember that after dark, the track cools down a lot, so everything starts to work a little bit better. The tires start to work better. The motor likes it a little bit better. So that's also a reason why you can still run very, very respectable laps in the dark here. Here's the run down to turn 17 here. You see him downshifting now to 4th, now to 3rd gear, pulling it nice and tight towards the apex, tracking out under the bridge. He's going to come in under there, and you're going to see on that dashboard, you can see it right there. It's going to be a 1:47.33 was the time. Now we move to lap 290. Greg is in the car at this point in time. He is going to get hit right in behind there by a GTP car. Greg had slowed down just a little bit to not hit the GT3 car in front of him. The driver of the car that hit him from behind said, "Why'd you slow down for the GT3 car?" And Greg's response was, "So that I don't plow into him like you just plowed into us." That might be why you're 20 laps behind us. Snark and frustration from Greg March there on the crash on lap 290 here. Now we go to lap 312. It's lap 312. And Greg, in the dark, just like Fabian, lies down his best lap of the day. Way into the evening hours, actually coming up with less than 50 laps to go in the race, full on in the dark. And Greg is going to lay down a 1:47.8 here. So this is probably going to be that full race lap here. We're going to get to see the whole thing here. There he is going through turn 5. Now he's going to head to, I think that's the exit of 3, actually. Hard to figure out where we are in the dark here. But as you can see, still in 9th place in its class. You can see that on the side of the race car there. During this race, I was in and out of the team's radio signal, helping with, trying to help with fuel times and strategy and things like that. One of the parts of the racing that I really do enjoy, working up on top of the pit box. So kind of the same feel in a race like this. I was able to help out a little bit here. Here's Greg finishing up that big lap. Now he's going, this is the end of the back straight, going into the right-hand sweeper. There he is. I'm not sure if we'll get the in-car picture here as he comes onto the front straight, but if we do, you'll be able to take a look at his dashboard. No, we're not going to see it. But that ended up being a 147, where is it here? 147.8 was the time. Now we've got Lee in the car for the final stint of the race. Lap 238 is where we pick this up, and he is in major fuel saving load here. We're trying to go, pull up the notes here. This was the fuel save for the entire stint. Wanted to try to get to the end of the race without having to pit another time. The car in position 9, 9th place at this point in time, but the car in 10th place, hoping to be in 9th place, was only half a lap behind the 19 car. So if the car pits at this point in time, very likely that the car in 10th place would be able to leapfrog into 9th right in the 11th hour. So Lee is in huge fuel saving mode. This is where I was pulling out my calculator and my slide rule and my AI. No, there was no AI involved, but every lap we were looking and calculating how many laps of fuel he's saving, and are we going to have enough gas in the car in the final part of this race. And as we were watching and all of this was happening, able to move into 8th position during all of this time, because somebody did have to come in front of us for a late splash of fuel as well. And in the end, Lee was able to save enough gas to not go into the pits. And here we are on the final lap here, coming into the final corner. Lee Hetherington behind the wheel of the Thursday Night Sim Racing League team into an 8th place finish at Sebring. 8th in class, 8th in the prototype GTP class for the team of Greg March, Fabian Binz and Lee Hetherington. Great job by all the guys in their 12 hours of Sebring for the Thursday Night Sim Racing League. Trying to see if this is the end of the... It looks like maybe I was a little early on the final lap. Call, maybe this is the final lap. He's doing a great job. No, I think this is the final lap here. So I was one lap premature. Not quite like the Daytona 23-22, 23-52, or 58 or whatever it was. But there's Lee going through the middle section of the course here in the dry, just trying to keep it between the white lines and the little reflectors for this final race. Still fuel saving. Actually, by this point, we knew he was going to have enough gas to the end, so he was trying to put down a fast lap here on this final lap. Yeah, Lee put together a fuel-saving masterpiece here in this last lap. Now he is on the back straight, heading down towards turn 17. This should be the final time by. You'll see him start to downshift. Here's 7th gear. Now he's going to go down to 3rd or 4th. I think he takes it in 3rd. There he is, 3rd gear. Coming down through the start-finish line for the final time. Checkered flag is in the air for an 8th place finish for the team. Great showing for Sebring 2024. Not quite sure what the next team race is going to be, but that is how it ended.